Okay, good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Behind the Business. This is our series inside Women in Business Australia, where we sit down with incredible women from our community and get to know the women behind the business. So today I am joined by Emily Hallt. Emily is the Director of Disputes and Litigation at Molonglo. Hopefully I said that right. Yep. Legal. So where she helps individuals, businesses, and organizations navigate conflict with clarity. They confidence and practical strategic advice, but Emily's story goes far beyond one title. She is also a researcher, TEDx speaker, photographer, advocate, and leader with a career that brings together law, research, creativity, leadership, and community impact. So today we are getting to know the women behind the work, the journey that shaped Emily, and what it means to build such a meaningful career that does not have to fit inside one traditional box. And that's what I love so much about this interview today. So, Emily, thank you so much for being here. I am actually really excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I'm really excited as well, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Beautiful. So, let's start with you, Emily. Who are you behind the titles, behind the work, and everything you do professionally?
That's a very good question. I I'm married. My family is really, really important to me. We have a um, puppy, so of course that's really, really important to me as well. I think many people have a similar answer. You know, we are human at the end of the day. We are a person at the end of the day, and I love a lot of the simple things. I take my dog out on the weekend. We take her to go swimming at the creek. Um, I love to open a book. I love anime and film and photography. And I think so much of that informs who we are, both individually and professionally, I think. Um, and I think when it comes to what I do professionally as well, I think a lot of that um, informs the way I work.
Yeah.
I accept that we're human and that we sometimes have flaws, or sometimes we are busy, or sometimes things happen, and you know that's a part of life, and I feel like that's an important view to have.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, and I love that you are very much a human behind the scenes and you live your life every day. But you have experienced so much from beauty pageants from the age of 16 to, becoming the director of disputes and litigation for Molonglo Legal. So for anyone that's not familiar with that world, what does your work actually involve?
Okay, so my work now involves litigation and disputes. Um, Essentially, what that means is if someone has essentially gotten into a problem. It could be any kind of problem. I mean, we do spaces such as video games, uh, energy, technology, software, contracts. We are based in Canberra, so a lot of our contracts are really a business to business or a business to um, government, or it can be even more complex than that, which is there's a head contract to a government department and then several subcontractors. So the way I like to describe what I do is essentially complex matters. If there's any, for example, question that you don't know or understand, or that maybe someone else has been unable to answer,
Mm.
we are able to find a solution, or possibly able to find a solution. My background has always been complex and it's varied. And I think I draw from the many different areas that I've worked in to service what I do. For example, I started out in a small law firm, and they were generalist back when I graduated. I then moved to Salvo's Legal, which was a community law firm in Brisbane, except they initially started up to do insurance matters to service the floods. So that was quite different. And a lot of community matters usually involved human rights issues or violence or, refugees or those sorts of things. But they initially started out in that, and I had a lot of different varied experience from that, from a little bit of criminal law to domestic violence to refugees and migration to obviously the main thing that I was hired there to do, which was look at insurance. And then I went into commercial litigation. I was there for quite a while, actually. I think I completed my graduate years doing that. And obviously, I've come full circle now. But after that, I did my PhD, which was in Japan. Um, that was an incredible experience. I did photography there and uh, became a finalist in the Sony Digital Awards for that experience. Actually, I did my TED talk on two photographs that I took over in Japan. So
Wow.
if there's interest in looking at the way that art and law intersect, I talk about the photography that I do and the experience in my TED talk. Um, and then, yeah, then I was there. And then I did sports law, which was completely different to any
Mm.
experience I had had up to that point. But I specialized at that point, I'd done a couple of years already in my PhD and had quite a bit of experience with children and violence. By that point, my PhD is on child soldiers and international law. And then, as part of that role, they put me on discussions with a trilateral agreement around children in sport. So, got a little bit of a niche and a specialty in
Mm.
children and violence there. Then moved on to legal aid, where I worked. As as part of the youth law center, I did the college program. I was one of the first lawyers in as part of their pilot program. So we developed that and then pushed it out as a formal program, and it's now a permanent formal program run by, well, collaborated between legal aid and the education department here in Canberra. So that was
Wow.
really, really exciting, and I think a really great thing to contribute to. Um, was got a finalist award for that actually from the Law Society for doing that work. So that was really, really incredible. And then moved on to kind of moving towards complex litigation again after my graduate years doing litigation. Moved into doing child sexual abuse and human rights connected to children, doing litigation for that, which was really, really incredible as well. I assisted with the Ali Yasmin case and was over in Indonesia doing some work for that matter. Essentially, that matter was that the Australian Federal Police Australian Federal Police and the Australian Navy had imprisoned children from
Wow.
Indonesia, and in their cases claimed that they were adults, so therefore they went into prisons for the max was 5 years. They put them in for the maximum 5 years in jail, and some of them actually ended up by the point that this finally came out. A lot of them had actually served the entire 5 years of their imprisonment. So
Wow.
that was an incredibly complex matter and obviously an emotional one. And yeah, I was in Indonesia doing some work for that matter. An incredible experience. Complete thanks to my last law firm for allowing me to be a part of that and
Wow.
hiring me for that one. And then, there were some personal life experience, and this is about a lot of, who's behind what's going on. But I had uh, essentially I had a miscarriage, and I don't know, life changed after that. And I think a lot of women have that experience of, well, I do all of these things, and a lot of them are for these passions and these, creativities. And sometimes life puts you on a path that you're just like, you go with it, you go with the flow. And I think at that time, like before that, I was going with just the experience of my life, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think that was a turning point at that point where I was like, well, I'm doing this, but I don't know if that's what I want.
Mm.
And I think personal experiences are important because they change the way you think. They change the way that you settle on, well, what do I want for the future? And I think I was doing a lot for other people at that time. There was, the children that I was obviously passionate about. And still passionate about. I won't say that I'm not not passionate about those human rights matters anymore. I'm still a part of, for example, the Victims of Crime Board as their lawyer member. So there's a lot that I still contribute to that space. But I thought, I want to build more and I want to build more of something that's my own. So I have I started at Molonglo Legal, and that was at first supposed to be a maternity leave cover. So I was covering for Mariana, who's our wonderful solicitor at Molonglo Legal. Um, and I just thought, you know what? Why don't I just tell at my interview, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'll just tell him what I think and what I want to do and what where I want to be. And I told James Fisher, our principal solicitor and founder of Molonglo Legal, I told him, I understand this is a maternity cover, but I'm interested in the artistic aspect of Molonglo Legal. They do, video games. They're creative. I mean, James Fisher is an ex-accountant, but he's, very interested in video games and the creativity of that space and technology. And I was like, I'm interested in Molonglo Legal because, obviously you do work that's different, and you have a different perspective, and that's what I like. I'm interested in moving from the senior associate role, which was the level that I was at the time, and moving into building my own practice. That's what I want to do. And yeah, he came back to me and he was like, "Look, how about we discuss a way to get there?"
Yay!
And yeah, that's just how, that's how I started at Molonglo Legal. And I was like, okay, um, how do you suggest we do that? And he's been incredibly supportive through that whole journey. And as of the 1st of July this year, I got the role as Director of Litigation and Disputes and started my own practice. And I think uh, while the professional development is a great and amazing thing, I think embracing who I was and the experiences that I had and incorporating that into my career is it was an incredible moment and an incredible change, and I think got me to where I would be happier, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
absolutely, it
Um,
does.
yeah. So, and yeah, I think it's only been a month, but it's been an incredible month. And yeah, I think that's the journey.
Mm. I want to thank you just for sharing, the part of, when your life actually changed and, going through something so traumatic, it does change you. And it makes you look at life a hell of a lot differently. And, what you've created, you're a very incredible person, Emily. Like the way that you bring your creativity and your experiences into law and litigation and being able to, you know, have be in a workplace that is supportive and wants to see you succeed, by going into partnership and building your own business, like something that fills you up. You've had a lot of experience, overseas in Japan, you've moved around a little bit and just you're such an incredible human, and it's like an absolute honor to be able to be here and actually share your story. So, you know, your journey includes law, research, leadership, advocacy, photography, public speaking. How have you actually learned how to bring all those parts of yourself together?
That's a very big question, I think. And honestly, there's no real answer. I feel like, you can know who you are today and go, yes, I'm absolutely confident in and taking on that opportunity or doing that thing. But there's always that moment where you're like, why the hell did I do this? Why did I decide to put my hand up for that? But that's where you learn.
Mm,
I think there's no real answer to, did I have this all together at that time and that's why I took on that opportunity? I would say that's not how I did it. I would say that the way that I did it is by going yes and then learning the parts that I needed
mm,
to make that happen. I'll give you an example. I was doing my PhD right at the start. My supervisors were like, yeah, go to Japan. Like, if there's an opportunity, like, go
mm,
experience it. You're going to be talking about Japanese popular culture. You have to be a part of it. Um, and I think a lot of PhD students, they go, okay, let spend their entire time in a library, which I think is, valuable. Obviously, you need to do the work in terms of the reading and the writing and the research. Like, there's that component. But I gathered so much from just the experience of being in Japan around the culture, participating in it, understanding it.
mm.
Um, and there was a moment where I was already on the bus over, between Japan's airport and my first stop, and it was basically, I think, 10 p.m. at night. Like, there was a late flight in. And I just thought, I am literally alone in a completely different country. I know nobody except for, the emails that they sent me going, oh, you're going to be on this program. This person is the person supervising you. Like, that's the only name I knew. So, like, and I feel like there's that moment in the journey where you're always going to feel like, holy, like, sorry for the language, but holy shit. Why have I done this? There's always going to be that moment. And there's no other way to bring all of your experiences together other than to go take a breath and um yeah, I think that's a very, very important part. Just take a breath and go, I'm here now. What can
Mm.
I do now in that moment? Um, and I mean, there's been many circumstances where we've done, and there's obviously going to be varying degrees to that. But I think that's the moment when you go, okay, well, if I do this, that's too logical. So I'm going to have a creative solution, or I'm going to think about this problem from a different perspective, or um, I'm going to try this. And sometimes you just have to try.
Yeah,
You just have to,
exactly.
you just have to take the step, have a go at it, and see what happens. Um, Obviously, in law, we can't do that, but I can't just like turn up to court without having done my preparation. But
Yeah.
my preparation is key. But I think the way that that works into law and the clients that I service is that I talk with my client. I rely on my team. We do a lot of discussion among us. I include my paralegal in that as well. He is incredibly bright and I tell him to challenge me every time.
Mm.
I'm like, find where I might be wrong.
I love it. Yeah.
And that's incredibly important for my clients as well because I need to be able to um, consider my advice from every perspective, and that's what I do.
Mm,
Whether there's a creative solution for my client, or whether there's a logical one, or whether there's, the only if the only solution is going to court, um, then that's something I put to my client and I ask them, where you're at and where you're thinking is this what you are comfortable with?
mm,
And are you happy with the risks? And, the space that I work in is litigation and disputes, and there's always going to be risks. There's always going to be, are you willing to take the chance moment
exactly.
for my clients? Because once it gets like there's ways of getting to a resolution before court. Always, we can mediate, we can negotiate, we can discuss it out, we can find a solution. But once it's at the courts, it's in a system. It's
Yeah.
there's functions, there's a process, and you just have to ride the wave. And whether that risk pays off or not is completely out of my hands. It is completely a decision, a commercial decision for a person, really. Um, and, there are other risks as well, or other implications. For example, it's costly,
Yeah.
not just financially, but on your time, on your energy, on your emotions. I've had varying degrees of cases. For example, I've done the child abuse matters. And I'll give the example of the Ali Yasmin one that started in 2014, I think, from memory, 2012, 2014, from memory. And it only settled, I was in doing that case and handing out the money from the class action in 2025.
Wow.
So that's a really, really, really long time. And some of the other matters I had were at the first time that they spoke to a lawyer was 8 years and still ongoing at that
My
time. I
goodness.
settled two of them while I was there. So it was a really, really long time. And another one that's come out in the news recently was the Johnson and Johnson baby powder, talcum powder class action that only just settled this year.
Wow.
And I remember like reading about that years ago when I was in uni. Like it's
Yeah.
some cases, especially the ones that have serious like emotional implications, can go on for a really, really long time.
Mm,
That is also can be the case for um, commercial matters, just business to business. You're, you're a client, you walk in, you go, I might need some help with this. The process for negotiating or mediating out of that could go for 6 months,
mm,
for example. And then a case itself, like for example, the federal court goes, yes, we can hear your matter within 6 months. But that's not a timeline that always works. Simply because there might be issues with between the parties between when they start and before they go to trial. There's a lot of preparation that comes in between that. I mean, safely, most of the time, I would tell a client, look, this could be 2 years.
wow.
No, and that at that time, when I'm looking at it, could be incredibly simple for to my mind. Like, okay, there's this one party and another party, they just need to discuss this and find a solution, but that doesn't always happen. And
Mm,
then there might be um, interlocutory applications in the middle of a matter that end up delaying when trial happens. So there's that. And then there's schedule. There's hundreds of cases going through a court, which means that the judge might not be available. So
yeah.
there's so many factors that end up leading to, a really long timetable. And while we can manage some of those factors, it can become a burden. But,
Mm.
that's why I say you hire me because I navigate this. I navigate the complexity of it. We can do it in very many different styles. For example, You can be included in every single decision, or you can give me instructions to do certain things, which means that I don't have to call you every day. Um, and that's a lot about trauma-informed practice, right?
Mm.
So, and I think it doesn't matter what type of individual you are, litigation is always going to be difficult. Um, and I don't mean to say that they don't have solutions either. There are circumstances where litigation can give you the best outcome or
Mm.
can give you the only best outcome that you are in for your circumstances. Um, but every client has their own goal and
Yeah.
idea about what their needs are. And it can vary. Some people might not even need court at all. But at the same time, they feel supported by going, okay, if this doesn't happen, then I can apply to
Mm.
court.
That's right. It
Yeah,
gives them options.
yeah, exactly. Um, Sorry, I think I've sort of moved on quite a little bit from your question.
That's all right.
But I think that, yeah, I think that the way that I bring all of myself together, comes into here and now and assessing the situation, taking a breath, and um, looking for the best solution, I think.
Yeah. You know, a lot of women feel that pressure to fit into one clear professional box. What would you say to the woman who has so many passions, skills, or interests and is wondering how they all fit together?
Mm, I can only speak from my own experience. Obviously, I'm no professional when it comes to, um, coaching or anything like that.
No, and I don't expect that, right? But you've got the lived experience
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
having so much experience in so many different avenues. How did you do it?
Um, I don't think there was any clear, proper plan when I did it. And I think a lot of people who have different passions probably go, there's no clear, like there's no
No.
exact plan. But I like to look at it as a whole. And instead of saying that, I've had these many different careers, I like to look at it and go, this one whole is my career.
Mm.
Um, and then I like to look at it by skills and go, well, the whole Myers-Briggs idea, there's many different personalities, many different skills, and all of those things can contribute to the task that you're doing now. And the task that you're doing now could be completely varied. I mean, like we spoke about, I did beauty pageants, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so completely different to law. But, I'm the person who participated in it and I got experiences that were um, personal and professional development out of it.
Mm.
A lot of the beauty pageants that I did had courses and professional development work, had networking with lots of other women. Um, and so much of that experience, I think, contributes to who I am today. I did networking last night. So much of that experience about meeting other new people and talking to them was a skill that I got from the beauty pageants a really long time ago that I now use today. So I think my answer to your question is if you have many different passions, there are so many creative ways that you can bring it together. And it's more about the skills and the relationships that you build
Mm.
through those different passions rather than um, a single set or a single way of bringing everything together.
Mm.
And yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it's the same philosophy when it comes to, law being a part of society and us and humans. I think that when it comes to careers, it's very much about yourself as an individual and your journey and the skills and people that you meet rather than the uh plan,
Yeah,
I suppose.
exactly. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that sticks out to me, and I am a w woman of many talents, and I can go from changing a tire, doing some work on a car, to building websites, to what I'm creating here now. And it's just like, you know, I can tile that in. I mean, I'm not going out changing tires every day, but I there are lots of different skills that I have, and it's about being creative. And how can you each skill that you've got can influence everything that you do. And it's just about having fun and feeling and filling out what you're passionate about. And it becomes under that big umbrella of what you are and who you are and why you do what you do. It just brings in those little aspects from every avenue. And I'm not
Yeah.
telling people to go out and get 10 different jobs or anything like that, but you can bring, if you've got certain passions, you can bring them all together.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good philosophy, and I think creativity is incredibly important, as you said. And I mean, I think of women, and I know that we go, oh, I have this career, I have this, or I do this, and a lot of people focus on the story behind that, but I think women are so versatile.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
we're incredibly versatile, incredibly intelligent. We can, as you said, we could go out there and work out how to change a tire.
Yeah.
My sister, was never great at school, but she knows her way around an engine.
Mm.
And in comparison to me, I'm like, I don't even know where that bolt's supposed to be. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, there's so many like incredible women out there, and I think we all have our own journeys and our own stories to tell. And I think that's what attracted me to your post about the women in business and this series is, we are so much more than the outside story that people see.
Yes.
We are so much more than that story, and the journey that doesn't get like the story that doesn't get told is probably the most interesting.
It is
Um,
though, yeah. And
yeah,
so many women hide behind that and think they have to be professional and that they can't show their real selves. And it's really sad because it's those experiences, those traumas, that past that has shaped you into who you are today. And you wouldn't be the person you are. I know I wouldn't be the person I am if I hadn't gone through the things that I've gone through.
yes.
So, yeah. I totally get that. Emily, you're completing a PhD while also leading litigation practice and contributing to advocacy work. Excuse me, sorry. How do you manage holding such big roles and responsibilities?
Support. I think that's
Mm,
the biggest lesson that I have had to learn through all of this. And I mean, like, my family is my mum and my three sisters. We've all been incredibly independent our whole time. Like, I don't remember a moment where we weren't. I mean, there was my mum watching my mum as a single mum, um, be independent, right? Like, not relying on people and doing it all herself. And I think growing up and learning that we have to find our supports. And I think, at work, I've already mentioned James Fisher, who's an incredible support at work. I mentioned paralegal, who's incredible at supporting, our case theories and questioning what we do and just solidifying our advice. And then at home, there's my husband. Like I've already mentioned the experience that I had that completely
yeah,
changed my life. And I think my husband was an incredible support in that. And I really mean that. Like I took 3 months off
yeah,
work. I decided, like I was, the day after, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to change everything.
yeah.
And I just decided, and I sent the text message into work going, I'm gonna quit. Um, and not being ashamed of that. I think a
No.
lot of women feel there's, there's something to feel depressed or ashamed about if you have to step back.
Mm,
And that's just not the case. And I look back at the moment where I did that and I think, yeah, that was extremely important for me to do at that time. Um, Not only personally, but professionally, because, we have professional standards as lawyers. And knowing the moment where you're like, okay, I am not going to be a good support for someone else, which is what lawyers do. We have to support our clients.
Yeah,
So, at that moment, I was like, I can't. And that was just simply the answer. And I think at the time when I did it, I was a bit like, how is this going to affect my career? Because I had no plan. I had no, what am I doing next?
mm,
None of that. And my husband was an incredible support through all of that, like keeping the house running and paying the bills and doing all of the rest of the things that come with that. But it was a massive decision and a massive life change. But I think if you ever have a moment where that becomes a part of the decision you have to make, you have to make the one that's best for yourself and not be ashamed of it.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think the biggest lesson, as I said, is support.
Mm,
Um, and the biggest way that you can juggle all of the different life happenings as well as the different responsibilities is having the right support network, having the right people to rely on.
yeah,
And that's an incredibly important, I think, aspect of both professional and personal life.
absolutely. Yeah. And one of the reasons I built this community was because women aren't meant to do business alone.
Yeah.
And the more that we get in there and support each other, it's such a beautiful, relationships that are formed, but you don't have to do it on your own. And
Yes.
to be able to have that support system, it's incredibly important. So, yeah, I love that. And, I love that you were able to take time to grieve.
Yes.
Like you've actually triggered something in me of something, and I'm not going to go into it right now. That's time for another story.
Yeah.
But I never got time to grieve. It was no, straight back to work. You've just got to go that. And it wasn't the loss of a person, it was a loss of me. So a part of me. And yeah, but that just come up through there with what you were saying. And, you know, there is that guilt and shame and everything. And I didn't even get time to feel any of that. So, and I can see where it's probably led me down the wrong path in certain aspects during my life because I didn't take that time. I didn't allow myself to take that time. So, I think that's really important what you've just shared there. It's so beautiful. Yeah, so beautiful and so important to know that it's okay to step back if you need to. You know, your work with the ACT Victims of Crime Advisory Board taught you about justice, support, and advocacy. Like, what has that work actually sort of taught you?
Um, I think, well, through the victims of crime role itself, or do you mean through the all the advocacy work
I think
I've
through, yeah, probably not the right question. It was more advocacy. Like,
Yeah.
where did that all come into? And I guess, where did where did it start? This might be a better question, actually. What made you get into law? Is probably the
Well,
big question here in the advocacy.
there's so many reasons why I got into law. I was very, very young at the time, and I think everyone has that outlook in life where they're like, oh, we want to contribute to a world. And I think there were lots of personal as well as professional reasons why I got into law. One of the very personal ones, and I think it brings that nostalgic sort of story into it, I think, because at the time I really wanted to be an archaeologist. I
Oh,
was like, I was really into, ancient history, and I was like, I'm going to go to an ancient site and like discover like civilization, like this sort of thing. And that was I think this is where the idea sort of bridged in for me. And then I was like, how am I supposed to do that?
Mm,
Obviously I can go to uni and do like a history degree, but like none of these degrees tell me that, like you can go to a site and do this sort of thing. And then I was like, okay, there's an archaeology degree that I could do. Um, but that was quite expensive. And I'm a single mom. We didn't have I just didn't have the capacity or the resources to be able to do that sort of degree. Um, and then I was like, well, there are other people that have inspired me. And then I started thinking about law from the perspective of history, right? Like,
mm.
I think this is like where the light bulb moment where
Yeah.
it's like, this isn't like law isn't just rules and practices and functions and all these cases and those sorts of things. It's a part of history and we literally we go in, everything gets transcribed and then a decision is made and that is published, and my mind sort of went in a different direction, and kind of a full circle moment from there is that I was in legal studies class in high school, and there was a documentary about I mean, this probably is not the most important part, but there was a documentary about terrorism in Australia and Australia's updates on the terrorism laws. I think this was in and around the time where there was a big case in Australia, and it ended up in a documentary and came, into the classroom. Um, and the solicitor, the barrister who was on that, Stephen Kime, he did this talk about the ways in which we need to think about law as connected to humans and how humans believe and behave and function. And that inspired me. And
Mm.
the incredible thing about that story is that come to university, I was put into a program called Semester in Practice, and I put in all of my ideas about, like, it was a questionnaire about, what kind of lawyer do you want to be and what inspires you about law and those sorts of things. And I was linked to a lawyer in the profession. And interestingly enough, I was linked to Stephen Kime, the barrister
Oh,
that
wow.
that started the whole thing off. So, I went to his office, I followed him around, watched him do his cases, um, talked with him, and I'm still, I still talk to him today. So that was, I think, what like the inspiration of that is what led me into law.
That's incredible.
And
Yeah.
that I think is a moment where the advocacy
Mm.
began, is the thinking about humans, law, and how we contribute as a whole. And I mean, the case that he was working on, that documentary was about, was obviously something that impacted Australia as a whole. And I've gone a completely different route with that, with the children and abuse and
Yeah.
the background on human rights there. But that was definitely what I think pushed me into doing an arts and law degree.
Mm.
I obviously couldn't still give up on the artistic
Yeah.
side, the history and just the interest in that. But yeah, I ended up deciding that, I could just mesh the two together, and did arts and law.
I love it. Yeah.
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 So that's where it began. At least the inspiration for doing human rights matters began. Um, that continued, I think, in university while I was studying. I should try to think back to some of the stuff that I did. It was so much. I mean, like, I did in film, we did a documentary and we did it about homelessness. I think obviously I was always inspired to help people. Um, and eventually, I think that's the path that I was set on. I think that there were people, especially supervisors, both at Sport Integrity Australia, where I was working, and then at Legal Aid, that recognised that, hey, she has a passion for um, people and talking to
Mm.
people, and a passion for the issues that they experience. And I think that's where it all began. Definitely from that moment of being inspired by Stephen Klein to moving into um, yeah, a career. And I think every time an opportunity came up, I just kind of said, I'm nervous, but let's do it.
Yeah.
I think that was how it all happened. I think the board position, um, as well, is an incredible way to contribute to the victims of crime in the
Mm.
ACT. We have a lot of discussions about how do we link all the services together. We just finished doing some reform work as well, um, looking at like it seems like it's something like how do is that even something that you need to consider? But we actually discussed how do you give notice about difficult matters to a person.
Yeah.
I think how do you be trauma informed about what you should put into such a notice, especially one that we were discussing was probably should give some background in this on this and probably say that it's about death. So how do you give that notice to someone in a wills and estates manner? Like
Yeah.
you know, someone else is going to be hearing this news and it's going to be difficult news. How do we incorporate that trauma-informed thinking around difficult matters? And then it came down to, well, like a form of law, well, one of the functions or first things that we must do is give service, which is send something to a particular address. And something that came up is, well, people either experiencing violence or experiencing such traumatic experience as someone's death, their address shouldn't be available.
No.
It shouldn't be the front and center and obviously you have to give someone notice of a claim, but how do you do that without having someone's private address available, especially, domestic violence where there's a perpetrator who might be keeping track of such private information. Um, so we have these discussions and we talk about how to reform, that small part of the process
Mm.
that, someone else might not be thinking about. And I think that's a really, really important way to contribute. Like I've done so many like big sort of matters and contributing to things that I think it's really, really nice to contribute to discussions and reform about the the small things that have a big impact.
Well, that's right. I mean, with the domestic violence rate, in Australia and the women and men being killed, I know this is a pretty powerful session, but, it's something that needs to be shared because if we don't share it, if we don't go through and open our mouths for something that we believe in, how does anything ever change?
Yes, exactly. And making those supports better available is so important. For example, we realized we were sitting there and going, how do we do this and how do we do this? And can we build like a private sort of app,
Mm.
or can we build like a private way that they can go and get information about these things? Or, is there a way that we can build that? And my mind turned to we have hundreds of different organizations giving support in different ways. I mean, last night I met with, at the networking event that I was at last night, I met with the YWCA and learned that they have programs for women over 50, specifically women experiencing violence or situations at that age or homelessness at that age. And you realize that there are so many people willing to help and
Mm,
um, support others. And I think that in itself is an incredible thing. Um, but thinking about, and anyway, it comes back to the advisory board position. My mind was like, well, there's so many ways, like so many different organizations, but how do we link them all together in a way that's safe?
mm,
Um, and at the moment, we have a referral system where if you're contacted by one organization, and it's the reason why we do these types of networking is so that we can go meet someone else that might be doing something that that person is probably more fit to. And then that way there's a safe pathway
yeah.
from one person to the other. Um, and yeah, I think these sort of discussions about how do we do this in the right way, in the most functional way, in the most safe way is important. And of course, as a lawyer, those are questions that are always front and center for me, confidentiality, your privacy, and your legal privilege, which is a big one.
Yeah.
Um, and contributing to that discussion is important. I think these are the ways that, a lot of the experiences over time, either in my professional and personal life, come together and you go, well, how about we do X, Y, or Z? Or how
Yeah.
about, we reform the law so that you don't have to have your address in
Yeah, exactly.
front and center in a process, that sort of thing. And that's incredibly important. It's, I think, something that everyone has noticed in many different areas of the law. For example, ASIC recently changed things so that the director's address is not available on the public records
Yeah, good.
about a business. So that's, I think a really good step towards keeping people safe and keeping people protected,
Yeah.
people's rights protected as well. I know people are like, oh, but well, there's lots of questions about shouldn't we be thinking about X or Y instead, or isn't, this more important? But I think these things, like changing these smaller things, all build up into creating better laws
Yeah.
and better harmony and giving us a better avenue for making good reform.
That's right.
Um, and yeah, no, these things I think are important questions that we ask ourselves
Yeah.
at the victims of crime board meetings, and and it comes back to I think in the research that I do as well, it's like, well, what is the best way to test a law? Like,
Mm,
so much of it is ideas until it becomes a law and then it starts getting applied. And it's an entire system. And it's the reason why we have judges. It's the reason why we have courts, because then the court will look at it and go, well, in these circumstances, this is how it worked,
yeah,
and they make
exactly.
a decision about it. Um, and it's like, how do we test these things? And I mean, science has its own way of testing these things. And I think the reason why we have functions like a victims of crime board, for example, um, is to ensure that we are thinking about whether law is applying the way that we want it to,
Mm,
whether there are pieces that need to be reformed, whether there are supports that need to be put in place to help these things function. Um, and it's an important way, I think, for lawyers and people to contribute as a
yeah,
whole. Um,
absolutely.
like there are many ways that people contribute to law as much as lawyers do. So, um, and I know I've diverted away from your question, but yes,
That's
I
all
think
right.
this is the journey
Oh,
and the
no, it
exploration.
is, it is. And these conversations turn into a journey. Like I have sort of a few questions that I might have set out, and they can lead to down a totally different path with the flow of the conversation. So, one of the biggest things I can see here is the impact that you're creating. Tell me about the impact and what the future is looking like for you.
Thank you. Yes. Um, like it's a very big question. I have very many feelings about it. I mean, sometimes I don't even realize that I've made an impact. I think the moments where I've realized that, um, what I've been doing has been doing something good is the moment when someone comes up to me and has been like, uh, thank you. I realize that this helped me in some way. And honestly, I think that's been the biggest impact is that it's actually helped people either change their lives and
Mm,
that's and or solve their solve their problems. Um, I think most recently some of our clients have been quite like, oh, we appreciate how you've been running this, or we appreciate that you've been on top of that, or um, yeah, or even when the client comes back to me and goes, oh, I didn't think about that. Like that's something you've given me to consider. So I think there's many ways that I've made impact
mm,
um, you know, from something as big as assisting at Legal Aid and putting together the college program to simply a client coming back and saying, hey, I really appreciated that. Uh,
mm. I think
and
you're very humbled in the impact that you're creating.
um, yes and no. I mean, I'm very, very proud of what I've been able to do and achieve. But I also think that because it doesn't just involve me,
Yeah.
I think there's an aspect of considering how someone else has felt in
Mm,
that. Um, and as much as I can go, the Law Society gave me a finalist award for doing the college program and doing such a great thing. I also realized that it's the children as part of that program that are the most affected by something like that.
and that's the
Um,
impact that I'm talking about.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. There is a greater impact behind everything that you're doing.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think every lawyer feels the same about that. I think it doesn't matter what area of law it is, their client is who becomes a part of that incredibly and in part of the advice and in part of the decisions that are made. Um, and every lawyer is going to be like, well, hang on, I need to think about this because my client at the end of the day is the one that's life is going to either change or be altered or in
yeah,
some
exactly.
way, or positively. I mean, like I work in litigation disputes, so it ends up being a lot about the problems that people are experiencing, but there's a lot of positives that come out of it. I
Yeah,
mean, lots of people are buying a house, for example, and we do conveyancing at Molonglo Legal as well. And there's a lot of people who are like, wow, this is an incredible moment of someone's life to be a part of and a
yeah,
big moment to be a part of. Um, or equally building a business. Lots of clients who come through Molonglo Legal are building a business and considering how to do that. And that's an incredible thing as well. An incredible thing to be a part of. I think the video game space has been an exciting
mm,
thing as well, especially when we see one of our clients' games being advertised or people going, oh, we're playing such and such game, or just even watching and thinking about the way in which that art sort of comes alive, I think
yeah,
is an incredible thing as well. And like, yeah, there's lots of positives ways
yeah,
that
yeah,
lawyers can contribute to lives and lots of positive impacts that we can have in the sense of assisting people with the things that they're building.
yeah.
Um, and interestingly, I use building because it's more. I feel like it's a word that has very connected to people and their lives building.
Absolutely. I think we're building our lives every single day, aren't we?
Yes, yeah. Um, yeah, and I'm incredibly proud to be a part of in part of that impact
Yeah.
on our clients.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Emily, thank you so much for sharing your story and all of the many layers of who you are today. What I've loved most about this conversation is a reminder that success does not have to fit into one neat box. You can be strategic and creative You can be a leader and a learner at the same time. You can build a serious professional career and yet still honor other parts of yourself. You know, so I want to thank you for the work that you do, for your contribution to advocacy, justice, for your leadership, creativity, and actually reminding women that they don't have to shrink themselves into one version of success. So, for everyone watching, Emily, how do people connect with you if there is anything that that you might be able to offer them?
Yeah, there are many ways to connect with me. First and foremost, obviously, if you're seeking legal advice, we have a website where you can make an inquiry through molongololegal.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to connect and follow back with you. Um, I don't post often, but when I do post, it's usually either sharing something from my firm or sharing an interesting article or talking about my PhD. So there's some insight that you can get from my LinkedIn, yeah. So basically, email me through our website or follow me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, lovely. It's definitely been a pleasure, and I'm sure I could talk to you all day, like just with your experience and so much. You have such a just a beautiful story, and through the good and the bad. But the fact that you're being able to share that with not just me, but all the women in business in here, I'm so grateful that you said yes to this. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really been a pleasure. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, even just for a chat or a coffee, feel free as well to send me an email. I'm happy to sit down and have a chat with you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And that wraps up another series of our Women in Behind the Business.